Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Higurashi When They Cry Chapter 4. In the last episode, we finally got a call back from Ooshi regarding the informant, and so we decided to go meet up with him and said informant in Okinomiya. But shortly after arriving there, we basically found out that they weren't going to give us the information that they had to give to us all willy-nilly. Instead, before they could do that, I would basically have to play a game of mahjong between the two of them and some other older gentlemen as well, and win before they'd spill the beans on anything. And well, Akasaka basically showed that he definitely knows his way around mahjong. Very much so, in fact. And well, he won. So now Ooshi pretty much went to go do his own thing, and, well, now I'm here in the informant's car, waiting to see what he has to say. So, ultimately, not a whole lot happened in the last episode, so there really isn't much for me to recap. But there is one other thing that's not exactly related to this here that I thought about on my off time off camera, because, well, Rika's warning to me is still bothering me a good bit. So on and off I've been thinking about what it could mean. And that's when I remembered there was a certain tip towards the end of chapter 3 that was given to me regarding the meaning behind the name Orishiro-sama, and a so-called prophecy behind it that hints that Orishiro-sama may reincarnate in the eighth generation of the Furude family, and that whoever wrote that particular tip had speculated that it could be Rika who would fit this description, but there was really no evidence to support any such thing. What if all that information about this stuff, about the reincarnation of Orishiro-sama and all that stuff, what if that has something to do with what I saw from Rika? And if that indeed has something to do with this, then I would have to admit that there definitely is a supernatural element to all this stuff that's going on after all, besides the time loop stuff, I mean. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about that just yet, because, well, besides the time loop thing, it's only just one thing here that I'm willing to entertain at this point that could hint that there might actually be something supernatural going on here, again, besides the time loop stuff. But I want there to be more things that occur throughout the remaining chapters here that could give more credence to supernatural happenings going on, so I can feel more certain about this, is what I'm trying to say. Because I'm not inherently against the idea. Okay, maybe I am inherently against the idea a little bit here, because I prefer to look into real world explanations first for these sort of things before I go to the supernatural territory. But I mean, hey, if I'm presented with supernatural something here that I can't just simply explain away as like a trick of the light or something similar to that, then, well, I mean, fine. I will acknowledge. I will eat my own words. I will eat my own hat. I will do whatever I have to do and just admit, okay, I guess I should have been a little more open about the idea of supernatural whatevers. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah. Bottom line, I wonder if the whole Orishiro-sama stuff and the whole reincarnation thing might have something to do with what I saw from Rika a couple episodes ago, when she gave me that warning. So, in that case, maybe it wouldn't be so much demonic possession as it is, well, possession by the guardian deity of Hinamizawa? Anyway, I just felt like just throwing that out there, so let's just go ahead and resume this, shall we? The informant, named Sato-san, had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns.
左折法による尾行確認ですか?
Checking if we're being followed.
詳しいな。
Yeah. You know a lot about this. Checking to see if you were being tailed by making left turns was a rare classic technique. If it was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. But if you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not.
Akasaka君が何者かは旦那から何も聞いてないんだが。
I didn't hear anything from the boss as to who you are, Akasaka-kun.
やっぱり警察関係かい?
Related to the police.
尾行確認に詳しいなんて、あとは探偵者くらいしか思いつかねえね。
If you're familiar of checking for being tailed, the only other possibility I can think of is something like a private detective.
言わなければならないものでないなら、拒否したい質問ですね。
If it's not something I have to say, I'd like to refuse to answer that question.
やれやれ。
My, my.
麻雀やってからすっかり雰囲気が大人びちまったな。
Ever since we played Mahjong, you seem a lot more mature.
会った時のあのおどおどしたあんたはどこ行っちゃったんだよ。
I wonder where that hesitant person went from when we first met. I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play Mahjong. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming that there were no cars following us, slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the lights outside. The only things I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs.
旦那からHinamizawa村については多少のことは聞いてんだろ?
I heard from the boss that you want to hear a bit about Hinamizawa Village, yeah?
御三家という旧家による支配や、現在は園崎家が一党独裁をしているとか、そういう話ですか?
Like about the old houses known as the three families who control the place. Or that right now it's pretty much the Sonozaki family running things?
そこまで知ってるなら、くだらない前置きは省略していいな。
If you know that much already, I'll cut out the introductions.
では、お願いします。
Then, if you would.
犬飼大臣の孫の誘拐に、鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が関与しているか否かを。
Can you confirm or deny if the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance is involved with the kidnapping of Mr. Inugai's grandson? Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anybody behind us before speaking.
昨夜、園崎本家で親族会議が開かれたそうだ。
Last night, the Sonozaki main house held a family council.
親族会議ってのは旦那から聞いてるか?
Did you hear about it from the boss?
いえ。
No.
普通に親族会議って言ったら、まあ親戚が集まってお茶でも飲むようなもんだよな。
If it was a normal meeting, then it would just be all the relatives coming together over a nice cup of tea or something.
だが、園崎本家の親族会議っていうのは、そんなのんびりしたものってわけが違う。
But a family council held by the main house isn't quite so relaxed. A family council held by the Sonozaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa Village. They wouldn't be talking about private family matters. It would be about the village as a whole. About organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oryu Sonozaki. More or less called Empress Sonozaki, as the ultimate decision-maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in the futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face. That was Uryu Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Uryu Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Uryu. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody who so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her in the future. This granddaughter of the Sonozaki's leader. And also on either side of her sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furud family. First on the list for the Kimiyoshi family was of course the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. And lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite to them sat the other of the three families, the Furud family. The Furud family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter Rika. Rika was doted on by many of the other older folks in the village, and it seemed that Uryu was no exception. If Rika is present during these big meetings relating to the village, then I guess it is possible that she would learn a lot of the going ins and outs of the village just from these meetings. But if this is where she learned about Akasaka and where he came from, then that would basically mean that everybody else who partook in these meetings is probably aware of my presence as well then, which would be kind of unfortunate, honestly. That would mean my cover was blown probably before I even set foot here. And if that's the case, then there's probably a leak somewhere. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out how she could know about Akasaka and where he came from. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seems like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. I wonder, does she pay any of it no mind? Truly? In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Uryu's futon like it was a kotatsu. All this was the three families. And all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in the seiza position directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their center, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertaining to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in 3 families as clear as day. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa.
その会議で何が話されたんですか?
What was talked about at that meeting? Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak.
マスコミ関係に支払ってる謝礼金の額が大きいんじゃないかい？
Wasn't our monetary gift of appreciation to the media a little large? Breaking the long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. The Onikafuchi Defense Alliance wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for the cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam Project, with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。
This isn't an era where you can get what you want just by throwing rocks.
マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
It's very important you don't underestimate the power of the media, and we want to borrow some of that down the road. The expressions of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen. As the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Uryu Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In this civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Uryu suggested that creating a strategy incorporating the mass media. Uryu's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress on the dam by even one day, then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy, but there was nobody who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But, with the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa's three families, Uryu, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable, and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that should be allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with mass media.
どう思う？お嬢さん。
What do you think, Uryu-san? The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Uryu, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening, or didn't even have the intention of listening at all.
去年機関士の値上げの理解を得るのにも随分苦労したじゃない。
Last year, we went through a lot of trouble getting people to wrap their heads around the price hike of the bulletins we were putting out.
一度だけってことで理解を得て、また今年もってわけにはいかないよ。
We convinced them it was just the one time. It just wouldn't do if we had another one this year.
ねえ、古手さん。
Right, Faroud-san? The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Faroud family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response. But his wife gave her answer without a second thought.
そうですね。
That's right.
機関士代は特に貧しい家には大きな負担になっています。
The costs of the bulletins are a particularly harsh burden for the poorer families.
みんな自分たちの村のためだからと耐えていますが、これ以上の値上げはやめた方がいいでしょうね。
Everybody's dealing with it for the sake of the village, but it's best we don't increase the prices anymore. The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve. But you couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income for the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads of the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. Well, maybe now we know who wears the pants in this relationship. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Harud bloodline. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things. The lack of authority in his voice meant that he still had not gained any favor. Casting a backwards glance at her rather disparate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Uryu, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple questions, with a nod from Uryu, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words.
機関士の値上げもやむを得ません。
There will be no freeze on the price increase for the bulletin. Well, the poor families are definitely not going to like this. Kimiyoshi made a face like he had just been into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all.
だけどミオンちゃん
But Mion-chan,
君だって分かってると思うけど機関士の負担は決して軽いものじゃない。
I think you already know this, but the cost of the bulletin is by no means easily affordable.
南沢の全ての人間にかかる重みなんだ。
It's a burden carried by everybody in Hinamizawa.
あんまり負担をかけすぎれば内部から崩れることだって。
If we make people carry too much of that burden, it's possible we'll collapse from the inside.
内部から崩れるのは誰ですか？
And who on the inside would start that collapse? I would imagine the poorer families, because they would be the ones most affected by this.
どれって別にそういう意味じゃ。
Who? I didn't mean it like that.
最初に崩れるのは誰かと聞いています。
I'm asking you who would be the first to buckle. Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of childishness remaining within her, the words struck in Kimiyoshi's throat as he sunk into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained from making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Uryu. That's why when Mion spoke them, she carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Uryu's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Uryu, the day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid.
Kimiyoshi-san,
Kimiyoshi-san,
機関士の値上げごときでは誰の決意も崩れませんよ。
nobody will lose their resolve over something like a price hike on the bulletin. I don't know. I think the Hoju family is pretty much proven around this time that they like that if presented to them, they definitely wouldn't mind having some extra cash in their pockets, you know? Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection.
マスコミ関係への出費は継続とします。
The expenses related to the mass media will continue.
その出費がさらに圧迫となるようなら、機関士の値上げもやむを得ない。
If those expenses become too much, we'll have no choice but to continue the price hikes. Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads, silently listening to her words.
園崎家当主代行、園崎ミオンです。
In the name of Mion Sonozaki, as acting head of the Sonozaki family,
我が名において以上決定し、
I
決定の効力は即日発行されるものとします。
I hereby declare that all this shall be effective immediately.
異議はこれを認めず、抵抗ある場合は実力をもって排除します。
There shall be no objections, and any opposition shall be removed by force. The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial, but there was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Everybody present could only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell.
なんとも大時代的な親族会議ですね。
Well, that's a rather old-fashioned family council, isn't it?
あんたみたいな若いもんにゃちょっと信じられないだろうけどね。
A young guy like you would probably find it hard to believe.
こういう古い土地にはこんなのが未だ根強く残ってるもんさ。
In an antiquated place like this, these types of things have firm roots. It was exactly as Ooshi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic.
会議はそれで終わりですか？
Was that the end of the meeting?
いや、まだ続く。
No, there's more.
先を続けるよ。
I'll continue. Eventually, after the ring of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of a gang that her father was the leader of. That organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, so it was quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, so it's not like just anybody would know. But just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father, to Uryu, was her daughter's husband. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance. And so that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it okay for her to tell what she just heard directly to Uryu? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently, but firmly, nodded his response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Uryu and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Uryu, and fixed her posture, waiting for Uryu to signal her response. It wasn't often that Uryu showed any emotion. That's why, when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in the room. Let me guess, she was just informed about the kidnapping.
そら、難儀なこともあったものよの。
That's quite the conundrum, isn't it? Uryu was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask.
どうしたんだい、お嬢さん。
What is it, Uryu-san?
我らにとって土地が母なら、この度のダムの騒ぎは、母の命を脅かされる騒ぎっちゅうことだろうな。
If this land is like a mother to us, then this business with the dam is like somebody threatening our mother's life, isn't it? Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Uryu, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice.
ダムの親玉の大臣がの、孫さらわれちまって、右往左往しとるっちゅう話だ。
The minister behind the dam project is apparently rattled over the kidnapping of his grandson.
これでおあいこだの。
That makes us even. So, basically, yeah, I was kind of right.
バカな。
That's absurd. Information on the kidnapping of Mr. Inugai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. How did they know? I think it's obvious, man. They had a hand in it. Even we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident. Exactly how did an antiquated household so far away from Tokyo come to know of it? It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had to mentally file this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind.
どうして鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が知っているんだ。
How did the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance know about that? Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence.
すみません。
I'm sorry.
続きをお願いします。
Please continue.
なあ、
Sure.
犬飼建設大臣のお孫さんがさらわれた。
The Minister of Construction's grandson was kidnapped?
お嬢さん、それは本当かい？
Uryu-san, is that true? That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV. But, in Hinamizawa, there was nothing strange about Uryu knowing something that the rest of the world didn't.
我らの痛みは母を失う痛みじゃの。
Our pain is the pain of losing a mother.
それに値するとは思わんが、孫を失う痛み。
I don't think it completely makes up for it. but the pain of losing a grandchild.
少しは答えるといいんじゃがの。
You'll have to bear with that for a bit.
なあ。
Don't you think? The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for consensus.
だが、土地と人様の子供ではわけが違うの。
Still, land and a human child are different things.
隠すのは構わんが、怪我だけはさせたくないものよな。
I don't mind hiding him here, but I want no harm to befall him.
こにゃ何の罪もね
The child isn't to blame. Well, I'm glad you acknowledge at least that much. Otherwise, I would see you as very freaking horrible.
え。大事にしたいな。
Make sure to keep that in mind.
それはつまり鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が誘拐事件に関与しているということ。
That means that the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance were involved in the kidnapping? Duh.
必ずしもそうとは言えねえな。
I can't say for certain. What do you mean you can't say for certain? I think that's just a straight up admission
どうして
of their involvement. Why?
当主であるお亮がこれほどまではっきりと誘拐した孫の処遇について指示を出しているのに。
Even though their leader, Uryu, was clearly giving orders on the treatment of the kidnapped child?
兄さん、これはね、
Lad, you see,
園崎家のいつものことなんだよ。
this is what the Sonozaki family always does.
いつものこと？
Always does?
それはどういう意味です？
What do you mean by that? Let's say there was a particular problem. One that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. If Oryu shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that, somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oryu's wish would be granted. However, neither Uryu or anybody else would know who actually did it. With this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table.
では
So a very
親
roundabout
族会議
way
に
of
出席していた誰かが犯人ということですか？
so a very roundabout way of ordering themselves around. Then, in other words, and one that also absolves them of some responsibility for that, some of the responsibility that they would have to bear if they just upped and told somebody to actually, hey, do this thing, you know? I don't know, it doesn't seem that clever to me. Then, that means somebody who was at the family council was the culprit.
あるいはそもそも犯人なんかいない可能性だってあるかな。
Or, there's the possibility that there was never a culprit in the first place.
俺自身、その万座の一同の中に誘拐犯がいるって確信を持ってるわけじゃない。
Ryu herself, in that room full of people, didn't explicitly say that somebody pulled off the kidnapping. And yet she treated it as though somebody did.
ただ、自分の意見を述べただけさ。
She was just giving her opinion. It was an odd and unpleasantly secretive way of doing things. Were they involved, or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position somebody was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were people connected to the case itself. Including the minister, there would be people affected by the incident. Or the people that committed it. In any case, there was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo for 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing at all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow.
孫の誘拐についてお涼が述べたのはここまでだ。
That's as much as Uryu said in regards to the kidnapping.
あんたの知りたかったことが含まれてりゃいいんだがな。
Hopefully what you wanted to find out was in there. It's not as concrete as I would personally like, but I mean, I think this is definitely good enough to phone the people back home and let them know, hey, I think there definitely is something very suspicious going on here we should all look into.
あとは兄ちゃんの仕事だな。
After this, it's up to you.
何のお仕事やってるか知らんけど、園崎家を相手にするなら相当の覚悟でやっとけよ。
I don't know what kind of work you're doing, but if you're going up against the Sonozaki family, you'd best prepare yourself.
大石の旦那は怖いもの知らずだけどな。あれでも2、3回は襲われてる。
Ooshi might be fearless, but even he's been attacked 2 or 3 times.
最近は来てないけど、一時はオフの時も防塵ベストを着込んでたんだよな。
He hasn't been wearing it lately, but at one point he was wearing a stab-proof vest while off duty. Oh?
忠告ありがとうございます。
Thanks for the
気を
warning.
つけることにします。
I'll be careful.
標準語が流暢だよな。
You speak pretty well.
兄さんは東京とかの人？
Are you from Tokyo by any chance?
え？
Huh?
それが何か？
What's your point? Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information on myself.
兄さんのお仕事だけどさ。
Your job.
ひょっとして警視庁の公安部の人ってことある？
Couldn't you possibly be somebody from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division? Lucky guess. I couldn't remain silent here. You'd be the same as admitting it.
え？
Huh?
まさか。
No way.
こっから旦那からもらった金の範囲には入らないんだが。
This wasn't accounted for in the money I got from the boss.
兄さんとは今日卓を囲んだ仲間だからな。
But as somebody who played at the same table today,
サービスってことで話してやるよ。
I'll give you this one as a freebie.
お涼から誘拐の話が出た後、もう一つ話題が出たんだ。
After Uryu talked about the kidnapping, there was one other topic that came up. Another topic that Uryu brought up. And right before he told me this, Sao-san asked if I was from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division. In other words, it was something big. What those two things meant caused a chill to run up my spine. I think I might know what it is. Holy shit, I might be right. Well, I was right, wasn't I? That Rika managed to figure out who I was because she overheard something from one of these meetings, which means that they already know I'm here. Meaning that there's a leak. So you see,
大臣の孫さらったのは調べるために
that in order to investigate the kidnapping of the minister's grandson,
東京からはるばる公安の捜査官が派遣されてくるっちゅう話だ。
there's words that there will be an investigator from public safety dispatched all the way from Tokyo. Somebody's leaking information to them. They gotta find the source of the leak.
公安の捜査官。
Investigator from public safety.
大臣の孫の誘拐な。うかつにゃ大ごとにできゃんってことで。
They can't be reckless and make a big deal over the kidnapping.
警視庁の公安部が独自で調べとるっちゅう話だ。
So it seems the Metropolitan Public Safety Division is investigating this on their own.
はっ、大行なこったの。
Ain't that grand?
どうした？
What is it? Rika, who had been drawing the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked at Uryu with an interested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up.
警視庁が来たのですか？
Did Did the Metropolitan Police come?
いいかちゃまは警視庁も知ってなさるんかい。
You're about to... Wait, this... No, wait. When did this meeting occur? Whatever, just continue. Oh, so Rika-chama knows about the Metropolitan Police Department.
偉いの。
That's very admirable.
誰が来たのですか？
Who came?
公安のどんな奴が来よったんか。誰ぞわかる奴はおらんかいな。
Is there anybody who knows what kind of guy from public safety came here? Mion's father raised his hand slightly.
新米の若造が一人と聞き及んでおります。
I hear that it's a nice young piece of fresh meat.
新米？
Fresh meat?
ほかほかなのですか？
Is it nice and tender? Why do you want to know? Do you plan on tenderizing poor Akasaka?
ええ、はい。
Yeah, it is.
新米とか。
Fresh meat. Mion's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's question.
ほかほかのふかふか？
Tender and tasty? This conversation is making me think about your local folklore a bit, and it's not exactly making me feel at ease. I hope you know that. Yeah.
ほかほかのふかふか？
Tender and tasty. Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had the answer to.
リカちゃまはその男のこと何か知っているのかな？
It is a good question. Why did you take interest in this? Does Rika-chama know something about this man?
知んないのですよ。
I don't know. After her rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath Uryu's futon again. But when she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was deep in contemplation.
どうしますか？
What shall we do about him?
お母さん。
Mother. Mion's father posed the question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face indicating that, given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time.
はるばるHinamizawaまで来よった。
He came all the way to Hinamizawa.
しばらくはのんびりさせてやるのもよかろう。
Let him take it easy for a little while.
泳がせろということでしょうか。
So he's saying to just let him go around as he pleases. Mion's father asked in response. Uryu smiled thinly as she responded.
ほっといたれな。
Leave him alone.
が、あんまりおいたが過ぎるようやった。そん時は遠慮せんとな。
But if he starts causing too much mischief, when that happens, don't hold back.
なめられるのはすっきゃせんね。
And enjoy being taken lightly.
なんて話があったそうだ。
Is what they talked about, apparently. Well, if I were you, Akasaka, I would consider getting a stab-proof vest too, at this point.
まさかあんたその警視庁の新米じゃないよな。
It couldn't be that you're that fresh meat from the Metropolitan Police, are you?
まさか。
Couldn't be. The sensation of cold, bristling fear began to crawl its way up my back. This family council took place last night. Last night! There we go. In other words, yesterday. Then, today, when I was dressed up as a tourist headed towards Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown. When I remembered the first person I met when I got to the bus stop, I couldn't breathe. The person at the family council who expressed interest in the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Farud. And then, the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Farud. It was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. When we met at that bus shelter, did Rika-chan already know my true identity? I would venture a guess and say yes, she did. The question is, how did she know where exactly to meet you? Did she know that I was Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department, and come to meet me? Then, including Mayor Kimiyoshi, every villager that I met, everybody knew but just pretended not to. That's a scary thought. Because Uryu had given instructions not to interfere. Thinking about it logically, it didn't seem possible. Unless there's a leak. I met quite a number of people. If there's people that are good at acting, then there's people who are bad at hiding things. If there was that many people, then there should have been somebody among them who knew I was from public safety and couldn't hide their hostility. If I had to wager a guess, it's probably because only a handful of people within the leadership of the village actually know about you, including Rika. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then, even still, why did Uryu tell them to leave me alone? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion? I would think that'd be your first guess. That would be my first guess if I was in your position. And to me, it makes the most sense. Or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recalled that strange voice, which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. And then, how did it warn me again? That's right. It warned me to hurry up and go back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the Onikufuchi Defense Alliance had discovered my identity, the absurd worry brought on by the unknown girl stuck with me more. What exactly was that girl? What was the thing I would eventually regret? You're probably better off not knowing, honestly. That mysterious girl, Rika Farud. Let's stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now is merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything I heard right now to HQ and await further orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility the Onikufuchi Defense Alliance were related to this case was there. And the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious position. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support. If you're lucky, they'll call you right back before something happens to you, thus giving you the perfect excuse to get the hell out of there. and follow Rika's warning. Is that everything?
よければ好きなところまで送るよ。
If you want, I can drop you off wherever you like.
すみません。
Sorry.
では、お会いした元の駅までお願いします。
In that case, the station where we originally met, please. A rural road where even a street light was rare. I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light, was it simply darkness? Or was there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. Tips unlocked. Investigation runs ground. What's in the box? And the glint in a demon's eye. Okay, let's check out these tips. The investigation runs aground.
昨日銀座の料亭でお会いしてね。
Yeah. Yesterday, when we met at the restaurant in Ginza.
そういう話が出たんだよ。
That topic popped up.
別室の越見でしょう。連中、公安に干渉しすぎですよ。
That's overstepping their boundaries, isn't it? They're meddling too much with public safety.
あまり迎合すると悪い洗礼を残しますね。
If they keep doing that, they're going to set a bad precedent.
犬飼大臣は公安の動きに不快感をあらわにしているらしい。多分、月曜の町議で次官からその旨の話が出るんじゃないかと思う。
It seems that Mr. Inugai is openly uncomfortable about the way public safety is doing things. The Vice Minister is probably going to say something to that effect during Monday's debate session.
参ったな。
But what can you do?
次官へは局長級に話つけてもらうしかないですよ。給料を多くもらってる人の当然の仕事ってことで。
We can only have the director address the Vice Minister. That's why we pay him the big bucks.
まあそうなると局長からは絶対に大臣脅迫の物証を求められるよな。
Well, if it comes to that, they're going to ask him for proof that the minister is being threatened.
あの人、たまにどっちの味方か分かんなくなりますね。うちらの味方しなくてどうすんのっての。
If he's not on ours, then what?
まあ多分大臣を経由しての圧力だと思ってるけどね。俺が時間室で油汗かいて時間稼ぐ間に調査進めてもらうしかないよな。
Well, he's probably getting some pressure from the minister. But we'll probably just have to proceed with the investigation while he sweats it out in the Vice Minister's office and buys us some time.
全身の汗絞られて絞りかすになっちゃうかもしれないけどな。
You might get so wrung out to dry that all that'll be left are dregs, though.
でどうなの？調査の進行は。
So, how's the investigation going?
期待してた濃厚なラインがことごとく外れて、正直途方に暮れてます。
All the juicy leads I was pawning my hopes on turned out to be duds. Honestly, I'm at a loss.
最近の大臣発言をまとめると、Hinamizawaダムの計画の話が目立つっていう報告を聞いたけど、それはどうなの？
There are reports that the Hinamizawa Dam Project has been showing up a lot lately in the minister's press releases. So what about that?
目立つっていうか、本当に微細な程度の違和感ですね。
Well, you say showing up, but it's really more of a very slight feeling as something strange.
たまたま県議連でのスピーチだったから、時事ネタを話しただけかもしれないし。
He just happened to mention it during his speech at the XX Prefectorial Forum, so it just might have been something that he was mentioning because it was relevant at the time.
確か地元団体が過激に抵抗してるってやつだっけ？鬼ヶ淵死守同盟。
If I remember correctly, A local organization there was protesting quite violently, no? The Onikafuchi Defense Alliance.
確か赤坂君に調べてもらってたよね。
I think Akasaka-kun was investigating that.
僕は連中には今回の事件は起こせないと踏んでいます。ですが、疑わしいところのほとんどが真っ白な以上、疑いの枠から外すわけにはいかないかもですね。
I think you guys could possibly be... I think those guys could possibly be behind what's happening now. If we can't say there's anything overly suspicious about them, it might not be prudent to remove them from the picture.
赤坂君からは、その可能性は否定できないとの軽い報告は受けています。
Akasaka-kun reported in passing that he couldn't deny that possibility.
なら調べてみる価値はあるんじゃないの？しらみつぶしなんだから、残る疑わしい団体がそこ一つならやるしかないでしょ。
Then isn't there merit in investigating them? We're going through everything with a fine-toothed comb. So if they're one of the suspicious groups that are left, we'll eventually have to.
まあ、調べる団体はそこだけじゃないんですがね。
Well, they're not the only group we should investigate, right?
鬼が淵と同じ程度のレベルで疑わしい団体になると、もう相当の数になりますよ。
If we're talking about groups that are just as suspicious as Onikafuchi, there's quite a few of them.
人手も時間も残業代も全然足りません。
We don't have the men, the time, or the money for it all.
赤坂君からさ、もうちょっと詳しく聞いてみてよ。俺はちょっと要注意に感じるけどな、その死守同盟。
I'll try asking for more details from Akasaka-kun. I feel like we should pay some extra attention to this defense alliance.
彼、村人とうまく接触できたって連絡してきました。現地の警察とも連携できてるみたいですね。
He's reported that he's established a rapport with the villagers. It also seems like that he's collaborating with the local police.
赤坂君との連絡密にしてください。それで彼からの情報が引っかかるようであれば、増援を送ることもありということで。
Keep your contact with Akasaka-kun on the down low. Also, if there's anything in his info that merits investigation, it's possible we can send reinforcements.
わかりました。
Got it.
あ、すいません、片岡市長。局長からお電話です。
Sorry, Chief Katoaka. There's a phone call from the director.
こっちに回しますか？
Should I transfer it over here?
ああ、いい。そっち行きます。
No, it's okay. I'll head over there.
もしもし？
Yes, hello? Well, then I guess depending on how they choose to respond to our information, it's possible we could get some backup after all. But I do wonder what that phone call is going to be about. Anyway, what's in the box? Is it donuts? Do you believe that there are choices in life? Well, yes. There are many people who lament the following. If there only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, we would be able to scrutinize those carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all, and there wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? I vote blue. A lot of things would be uncertain even with that choice, wouldn't they? If you don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulse of opening the box that holds a better result for you. Then, after examining the shape and features of each and pondering a great many things, you have to pick up either the red or the blue. If this was you, which box would you open? red or blue. If you were to go by their traditional meanings, then red would be a dangerous, threatening color. However, that doesn't automatically mean that it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. In fact, it might even be that the colors are a trap, make you wary of the red box and have you open the blue. A trap? Could it be the contents of the box aren't a reward, but rather a penalty? See? Now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you start wishing there was an option to open neither and just leave. But there isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Well, then let me give you a fourth option. I could not open either box, but just stay right here. Oh, I forgot to say this, but if you chose one box, the other will disappear. So you'll never know the contents of the box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. Now, why don't you choose? The red box or the blue box? Well, I picked blue, so it's alright. You won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Holy fucking shit! I get a choice! I thought this was a kinetic novel. Okay, blue. Have you thought about it? Not really, I just went by gut instinct. In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now, open up the box you chose. Inside the box there was a stick of chewing gum. The gum isn't poisoned, is it? I know you're a little disappointed. Well, no, I don't mind having gum once in a while. Well, that's only natural. Then I guess I'm unnatural because I don't feel disappointed. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. How do I know the red box wasn't a dud too? The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it for all you know. No. In fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been in there. But even if you want to verify that, the other box has already disappeared. There's no way you can check now. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, just maybe, the other box was empty, and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So, what do you think in the end? If you were given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? I suppose yes, for curiosity's sake, if nothing else. But that'd kind of go against the whole point of this experiment, now wouldn't it? But unfortunately, a chance to choose between the red box or the blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. Oh, I disagree. I'll just simply reload this little tip and skip to the choice. The chance to change your selection will never come. Don't your parents often say, every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? See? Choices aren't that great after all, says you. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? No, not really. I'm gonna put this to the test. Let's just replay this and skip to the choice. Here we are. Now let's see what's in the red box. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? So you choose the art box, disappeared. Inside the box there was a piece of caramel. So, blue has gum, red has caramel. Right now you're thinking, that's it? That's right. The contents of the red box and the blue box were a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. Why are you telling me the contents of the blue box on... Wait. You knew I would do this, wouldn't you? That I would reload the tip and select the other option. You've accounted for this, didn't you? I fell into your freaking caramel trap. Shit! You might have thought that you made... Wait, was there other dialogue that was different? Doesn't look like it. You might have thought you made the wrong choice before, but now seeing them together like this, you can't really say that either choice was the wrong one. Well, I guess everybody has their personal preferences. If you prefer caramel to gum, for example, you're definitely thinking of choosing to open the box again based on that preference. The clear choices you wanted were basically this. The selfish desire to open up both boxes and compare the contents, then pick up the one most suited to you. But you see, reality is the same as this game. You only get to choose once. If you pick one, the one you didn't choose disappears. So there's no way you could check the result. If at that time, if you had done this, or perhaps you've done that, then it wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could be happier, or perhaps less happy than you are right now. In the end, you only had the pleasure of approving of or being disappointed by the choice that you did make. But that's fine. After all, didn't you enjoy the thrill of making the choice? If, like now, you knew the contents of both boxes, then the choice between the red box or the blue box would be just a waste of time. Because instead of this boring game about boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, listening for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's going to rain or not. That would be much more fun. Not gonna lie, I kind of liked how it seemed to have just taken into account that you would reload the tip again here and try the other option. It knows me. I don't like that. I just want to select the blue thing here again here, say if it will say the same dialogue we just saw here real fast. If I see familiar lines, I'll just go ahead and... Oh shit. Here we go. Now... Boxer was just a chewing gum. Looks like this is the same exact dialogue as the first time I chose blue. Then maybe it didn't take into account me selecting the different option? No, wait, if I do it now, then of course it would probably try something like that. Whatever. I will stop wasting time and take a look at the glint in a demon's eye.
Eh, はい。それで、お通夜が明日の午後6時からになりまして。 告別式があさってのお昼、12時から13時までになりまして。
So the wake will be from 6 p.m. tomorrow, and the service will be the day after from noon until 1.
会場は沖宮セレモニーホールになります。
The venue will be at Okinomiya Ceremony Hall.
すっか。
I see.
池澤助役のお孫さんの葬式じゃ、何にも挨拶なしってわけにもいかんね。
It's Deputy Mayor Ekizawa's grandson's funeral we're talking about. We have to pay our respects.
ミオ、代わりに出てえな。
Mion, I'll have you go in my stead.
うん、了解。
Okay,
喪服で行
got
く？
it. Should I wear mourning clothes?
香典はいくらくらい？
How much should I bring for the funeral offering?
学校の服でえんね。前のボタンちゃんと留めてくんねよ。
You can go in your school uniform. Make sure you button it up properly.
香典は5万。
For the money, 50.
10万包んだりな。
No, 100,000 yen.
世話になったかんな。
They've done a lot for us. Mion quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money her grandmother was offering.
池澤さんはな、沖宮の事務所長だった頃からしっかりした人だったんで、役人は挨拶って言っても絶対に玄関までしか来ん。
Ikizawa-san's been a prudent person ever since his days as head of the Okinomiya Municipal Office. Even if those government types paid me a visit, they'd always stay outside.
でもな、池澤さんはわしがお茶を勧めるといっつも上がってくれて、ちゃんと話を聞いてくれた。人の話を最後まで聞く、本当に鏡みたいな人だったんね。
But whenever I offered Ikizawa-san a cup of tea, he'd come inside and carefully listen to what I had to say. He always lent a proper ear to what people had to say. Others should learn from a person like him. The two guests made a show of nodding, making it clear they were paying attention as Oryu reminisced. The side of them trying not to get on Oryu's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally.
で、池澤助役のお孫さんはいくつで亡くなったんね。
How young was Deputy Mayor Ikizawa's grandson when he died?
11歳だそうで。
11 years old, apparently. That is unfortunate. That young. Ryu closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life.
確か、孫は一人だ言うてんな。
If I recall correctly,
かわいそうにな。
he said he only had one grandchild. How sad.
親より先に死ぬほどの親不幸はあるめな。
There's nothing worse for a parent than outliving their offspring.
ばっちゃんも他人には優しいね。
You're really nice to other people, Granny. Well, I imagine only to people that are on her good side.
私やシオンが死んだら同じように悲しんでくれる？
If Shion or I died, would you be this sad?
アホ抜かすんでね。演技でもねすったなんと、しゃらーったく。
Don't be stupid. Saying something like that is bad luck. Having got the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. The two guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along, instead forced awkward smiles.
それでは本日は失礼いたします。では明日の夕方5時にお迎えに参りますんで。
We'll take our leave for today then. We'll be by tomorrow evening at 5 to pick you up.
よろしくお願いいたします。
Until then.
ではごめんくださいませ。
Please excuse us. After bowing their heads repeatedly, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving her little hand goodbye.
帰ったよ。お役人もばっちゃのご機嫌伺いに大変だね。
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. It must be too rough for them to pay you a courtesy visit, Granny.
不法なんか電話でいいと思うのにね。
It would have been fine if they just broke the news over the phone. While it was true that Uryu Sonozaki was a central person for both her relatives and the residents of Hinamizawa village as a whole, as a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousands. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to her. Unlike Mion, however, Uryu was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda.
どうしたの？猛録した？
What's the matter? Are you going senile?
誰のお孫さんであろうと気の毒だのう思ったんよ。
I just thought that no matter whose grandchild it was, I'd feel sorry for them. Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude.
ミオ。
Mion.
俺、例の大臣の孫。
You know, that minister's grandson.
さらわれてからどのくらいになる？
How long has it been since he was abducted?
4日かな。
4 days, maybe. Or you let out another deep sigh.
旧敵の孫とはいえ、気の毒だな。
He may be the grandchild of our bitter enemy, but I still feel sorry for him.
そう。
Really?
十分気はせいたんろ。
That's enough of a warning.
そろそろ終わりにしちゃれな。
We should bring this to an end soon. The playful expression drained from Mion's face, leaving behind a stern one. And then, as if to ascertain Uryu's will, looked into her eyes. Uryu, expressing her attention with only those eyes, looked back into Mion's.
お茶が欲しんで頼んでな。さっきのチョコレートも食べといね。
I want some tea. Could you call for some? Some of that chocolate, too. Mion gave a small nod, then turned around.
シミコさん、いますか？抹茶に紅茶入れてあげてください。
Shimiko-san, are you there? Grandma wants some tea. Could you prepare some? From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing.
あ、もしもし？ミオンだけど。
Hello. This is Mion.
うん。
Yeah.
うちのお父さん、います。
Is my father there? Well, I guess it really is pleasant to see that she does have some humanizing qualities to her. Uryu, I mean. But I'm still feeling very uneasy about what's going to be happening here in the next part or two, or however long it'll take for things to go downhill, because, well, Rika's warning is still making me feel quite uneasy. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and just cut things off here. It's definitely not good for us that our cover has apparently already been blown before we even came here. I just wonder if we'll be able to figure out how the hell they were able to figure this stuff out. Again, like I've been saying throughout this whole episode, it has to be the result of a leak of some kind. There's probably someone in public safety who leaked all this information to the Sonozakis, which is how they would know. But what I find most interesting here is that apparently Rika most likely already knew who we were right from the beginning and seemed to take an interest in us when we were brought up during that meeting. When, in spite of everything else that was discussed, it seemed like none of that interested her. So, what is it about the public safety division and me in particular that drew her interest in the first place? Because I don't think it was necessarily just to give us a warning. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, if I can't think of anything before we eventually get to the reveal behind this reason. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Higurashi When They Cry Chapter 4. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.